What would you do if your first day on the job came with a rule sheet that said, "Never look directly at the fire after midnight, it isn't fire anymore"? I thought it was a joke, a campfire story meant to scare rookies. But the longer I stayed in that tower, surrounded by endless miles of dark Montana forest, the more I realized those rules weren't written for laughs. They were the only reason I survived. They told me being a fire lookout would be easy. Sit in a tower, watch for smoke, call it in if I saw anything. That was it. The pay was decent, the isolation appealed to me, and honestly, I just wanted to get away. The drive alone should have warned me. 60 miles of dirt road winding into nowhere, no gas stations, no towns, just pines, mountains, and silence. When I finally reached the base of the tower, the supervisor was waiting. Old man, gray beard, eyes like stone. He didn't shake my hand, didn't give me a tour. He just handed me a laminated sheet of paper, corners singed, words smudged like it had been copied too many times. At the top, in bold red letters, it read, "Tower Rules." He said 6 words that still echo in my head: follow them, or the forest takes you. Then he drove away, leaving me alone with the tower, the trees, and that list of rules. Rule 1. Never look directly at the fire after midnight. My first night, I sat in the booth with a thermos of coffee, watching the forest stretch endlessly in every direction. Around 12:30, I spotted it, a faint orange glow between the trees. Instinct told me to grab the binoculars. That's what I was there for, right? But when I leaned out and focused, the fire wasn't spreading. It wasn't flickering like a normal blaze. It was moving, slow, steady, climbing the hill like it had legs. My stomach nodded. The rule sheet screamed in my head, "Never look directly at the fire after midnight." I yanked the binoculars down, shut the curtains, and sat frozen on the cot. The glow still bled through the cracks, burning in my peripheral vision. The longer I ignored it, the closer it seemed to crawl. I forced myself to stay put until the first hint of dawn. When I opened the curtains, the glow was gone. But on the hill where I'd seen it, the trees were blackened in a perfect circle, as if something had stood there, waiting. Rule 2. Keep the lantern lit. Always. By the second night, the isolation had sunk in. No voices. No cars. Just wind moving through pine needles. The rule sheet said, always keep the lantern lit, even when the power works. Seemed dumb. I had electricity. I didn't need an old kerosene lantern. But around 1 a.m., the power cut out. The booth went pitch black. I grabbed the lantern, fumbled with matches, and finally got the wick burning. Yellow light filled the tower just as I heard it. Footsteps on the stairs outside. Slow. Heavy. Too heavy for one person. The steps rose halfway, paused, then retreated back into the night. I didn't sleep at all. And when the power kicked back on at dawn, the wood on the stairs was warped, as if something enormous had pressed against it. Rule 3. Don't use names over the radio after 2 a.m. The third night, I finally had some company, the other towers checking in over the shortwave. Static, call signs, the occasional joke. It made the loneliness easier. Until the chatter cut out. Dead silence. I pressed the mic tower 6. You there? No reply. Then through the hiss came a voice. My voice. Daniel. Step outside. My blood froze. The rule sheet blared in my mind. Don't use names over the radio after 2 a.m. I dropped the mic, sat rigid, heart pounding. The voice kept calling, softer each time. At dawn, one of the towers didn't check in. His radio was later found cracked in half, lying in the snow. Rule 4. Never go below sublevel 2. Most fire towers don't have basements. Mine did. The top level was the booth, the middle for living, but below, there were 3 sublevels. I wasn't supposed to go down there. But the elevator sometimes opened on its own, lights glowing for sub-level 3. One night, I stood watching as the doors slid open. The air that drifted up wasn't cold. It was burning hot, metallic, like blood on a stove. From deep below came a wail. Not human. A chorus of voices screaming together, like every sound of pain I'd ever heard. The doors finally closed. The panel went dark. I never went near the elevator again. Rule 5. If the alarm sounds but no one runs, don't either. It was 3 a.m. when the siren blared, lights strobing, the tower shaking. Instinct screamed at me to evacuate. But the rule sheet flashed in my head. If the alarm sounds but no one runs, don't either. I froze, trembling. Through the glass, the floodlights lit the tree lean, and I saw them. Dozens of tall, thin figures, their bodies swaying like trees in the wind, moving toward the tower. Then the alarm cut off. The figures dissolved into mist. At dawn, the forest looked untouched, but the trees nearest the tower had handprints scorched into their bark. Rule 6. If you see yourself on the cameras, shut them off. Boredom makes you stare at the monitors too long. At 2:46, I froze. Camera 4, the stairwell. I was on the screen, climbing slowly, flashlight in hand, except I was sitting right there in the booth. The other me stopped, tilted its head toward the lens, and grinned. I killed the feed, ripped the plug from the wall. My hand shook for hours. The next morning, boot prints dotted the stairs. My size, my tread, but I hadn't left the booth. Rule 7. Don't speak to the scientists after midnight. On the 4th night, someone knocked on the booth window. A man in a lab coat. Thin, twitchy, glasses fogged. "We're not supposed to be here," he whispered. "Neither are you." Before I could reply, he walked into the snow barefoot and vanished into the trees. The next morning, no trace of him existed. No coat, no badge, no record of a scientist at all. The other towers avoided my questions. Rule 8. Don't watch the horizon too long. The forest at night is endless. Black ridges rolling forever. Sometimes, if you stare long enough, the tree lean starts to ripple, like it's breathing. I learned that the hard way. One night, I watched too long. The ridges shifted. Shapes rose, taller than mountains, moving slowly, like giants waking from sleep. I snapped my eyes shut, whispered the rules until my throat went raw. When I looked again, the horizon was still, but the glass of the booth was warm, as if something enormous had leaned close. Rule 9. Leave before the 9th sunrise. The last rule wasn't nightly. It was final. No one stays longer than 9 days. Leave before the 9th sunrise. I lasted exactly 8. On the morning of the 9th, my ride was waiting, a rattling Jeep on the dirt road. As I climbed in, I glanced back at the tower. Every window was black, every floodlight off, but pressed against the glass were pale hands. Dozens of them, lined across the tower, waving goodbye. I quit the moment my boots hit pavement. The paycheck is still uncashed, buried in a drawer. But some nights, when the wind howls through my apartment vents, I hear tapping on the glass. Slow, rhythmic. I don't look, because I still have that rule sheet. And I know those rules weren't written just for the tower. Backhand index pointing right, drop a comment. Would you last 9 nights in that fire tower, or quit on day 1? Smash subscribe if you'd even try.